How did you integrate technology into your product? In order to produce the pages of my magazine, I've used a variety of technology, and my skills progressed along the way. This starts simply with Blogger. I regularly updated my blog with Magazine Process through PowerPoint slides, videos created on iMovie, and embedded through YouTube, and Prezi presentations. It was difficult to embed my Prezi into Blogger, so my alternative was to embed the link, which then redirects to the presentation. Most of this was done using my own laptop, a MacBook Pro. This was a very useful tool for me, as it had all the softwares I needed, including Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Photoshop, Lightroom, iMovie, and Safari, which I used to conduct my research. For the majority of the photographs of my pages, I have used my Canon 5D Mark III camera. This includes my cover image on the front cover, the contents images, and my double-page spread photograph. I used these settings in the studio. My aperture was on f8, my shutter speed was 1/160th, and my ISO was 100. These are the standard settings used in studio, and if I needed to make any changes to exposure, I either put up or lowered the aperture. For the other photos where I used natural lighting, my camera was simply on auto. This is the easiest mode, as it adjusts to the environment by itself. This camera was the best tool I could use in order to receive maximum quality. I also used an iPhone 7 for 2 of my images on the contents page. This was also a good camera, and because the contents page features smaller images, the DSLR was not compulsory in providing good quality. The photos from my DSLR have been transferred to the iMac by simply inserting the SD card and importing the best photos. I've transferred the photographs from my iPhone onto an iMac via email. AirDrop would have been a much faster method of doing this, but my iPhone couldn't locate the iMac, possibly because it's an older version. Now on to designing my pages. My front cover and contents page have been designed on Photoshop. Because I'm also a photography student, I had prior knowledge on Photoshop basics. Any additional help I needed, I got from my teacher and tutorials on YouTube. I found the front cover was rather straightforward to design and achieve professionalism. This is because most front covers follow the same conventions, and most of them look alike in terms of layout. I used a variety of tools on both my front cover and contents page, and these are as follows. The ellipse tool to create a promotional circle, the line tool to create the plus shape, the magnetic lasso in order to eliminate background from the image, the color dropper to use the exact color found on his cloak. I included a new background layer for a pure black backdrop. I used the text tool in order to create all cover lines, and I used the rectangle tool to create the regulars box. Although I used InDesign to design my double page spread, it began with Photoshop. I uploaded my chosen image, used the gradient tool, and created a white gradient from the left side of the photo. I kept playing around with it until I was happy with the spread of the gradient. The contents page, however, I felt was more difficult, purely because there are numerous different layout designs. I felt that it was hard to align my photographs nicely against the text. In order to ensure that each aspect was aligned correctly, I used the grids on Photoshop. Although I had never used InDesign before and it was tricky to understand to begin with, I slowly got the hang of it and it became straightforward. On InDesign, I made use of the following tools. The selection tool to move things around. This includes text, the photos, and the lines. The type tool to create my text. This text was placed in columns. The line tool for the numerous lines I used to section off the text. The eyedropper to pick up the red color from the image. I also created a drop cap using character styles. When designing my pages, I prefer to use Photoshop simply because I'm more familiar with the software. It was easier for me to use and make use of the tools. I also found that Photoshop was more or less self-explanatory, as all the tools were obvious, and even when they weren't, following tutorials was easy. This is not to say I found it difficult to use InDesign, but using it to design my double-page spread was more time-consuming, as often I didn't know how to do certain things, and so I'd have to ask my teacher. Post-designing, I'm still making use of technology through Blogger, as I'm uploading my evaluation questions, and I'm still using my MacBook Pro to do so. For my question 5, which you can see on my blog, I'll be making use of a printer for the second time in this project. My focus group included printed copies of world music magazines, and my question 5 evaluation will include feedback through printed copies of my own magazine. Everything else in this project was done digitally.